Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network. kingofpodcasts.com.
TKO cashes in by the truckload, but their main roster creative is bankrupt.
Woo! Hey, this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair. And believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence. The King of Podcasts radio network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Welcome to episode 964 of the Wrestling is Real podcast. King of Podcasts here with you. We're on the heels of Crown Jewel Perth from WWE. That's this weekend. They're expecting us to go and wake up 8 a.m. on Saturday morning to watch another 5-show pay-per-view for 2.5 hours, 3 hours total. That's the plan. It's what they're going to do. And it's amazing how little I've talked about the actual in-ring product, because there hasn't been much to say. It's amazing how little and how easy it is to go and follow the product now more than ever. If that's something that WWE wanted to do in the first place, well, they're doing a great job of it. This is like color by numbers, fill in the blanks, connect the dots. So simple. Ridiculously simple. And now they're at the point where some of their storylines don't really have much of anything. It's whose line is it anyway, and match. But the other thing too is that even the simplest of storylines that have gone bad, they're having to go ahead and do damage control for. So after Roman Reigns has his deal losing to Cody Rhodes, drops the Universal Championship, has this fight with the Bloodline that just goes badly, and no plans for Roman Reigns, no whatsoever. Now he's back together with Jimmy and Jay, and now there's more of a Bloodline tussle, trying to recreate and re-spark that again, as they are dealing with Seth Rollins and the Vision, and that Paul Heyman wants to go ahead and reconsider that Seth Rollins, if he loses to Cody Rhodes at Crown Jewel, that Paul Heyman will have to reconsider why did he join the Vision and why did he put all his marbles behind Seth Rollins, which never made much sense anyway, except for the favor. So the favor is starting to run light. Meanwhile, no Brock Lesnar in sight, no AJ Lee in sight. All that was done for WrestlePalooza is forgotten. So instead of CM Punk dealing with AJ and dealing with Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, he's, having a little tete-a-tete with LA Knight. AJ Styles, Dominic Mysterio, we're not going to keep that storyline going. No, we need John Cena to have something to do, because we already ruined that character. We already ruined everything in Elimination Chamber. One of the best. What was the start of a good heel turn for John Cena? It could have gone so well, but the execution all throughout, to the point that John Cena had to turn himself back face. And the fact that you have this retirement tour for John Cena. He no longer has a title belt. You got only a couple dates left. You don't have a plan for him. And apparently, what we're going to get at the end of this is AJ Styles gets a match with him, and probably Gunther's going to be his last match, which is fine, but there was no plan in place. Nothing whatsoever. What a horrible way to start this all off. When you had that opportunity with John Cena, everybody was all big about it. It's gone flat in its face. The storyline that they really want to care about is Io Sky and the Kabuki Workers, Asuka, Kairi Sane, and Stephanie Vaquer being the women's world champion. And the fact that he's a Latina world champion, and, she doesn't speak a lot of English. But she's not the first Latina world champion. That would be Bayley. But never makes that point. Of course, they don't say that in the storyline. And it feels like the real storytelling that's going to be told at all is this invasion angle they have going on right now with NXT and TNA. So let's not even worry about the main roster. We'll just let them go ahead and do their own thing. Meanwhile, NXT, this what was called Invasion, but of course, remember, it was October 7th they were going to do it. And they changed it to Showdown. We're smart to make that change. A little damage control. It's negligence. There's some stubbornness in that back room and the writer's room back there. Whatever the Unreal series on Netflix was supposed to be, that's just window dressing. Because they, on camera, acted like they knew what they were doing. When the fact is, that writer's room, that creative area is, it's ghost town. They don't have anything going on right at all. And the biggest problem they have right now was something that, yes, the wrestling community did not know about. And I will say, I think I saw things about this back in January, but I didn't pay attention too much to it because, it was a matter of, with the ratings, the Nielsen ratings, we're going to go through changes. I remember reading about that because I knew that last year, you have so much streaming content and so much live sports on streaming now, but we don't have a really good gathering of who's watching what, because getting the numbers from the platforms, Nielsen's been the tried and true universal standard by which television ratings matter. And still, even though it's streaming, it is still television. So all these sporting events, when it comes to the NBA now, college football, NFL, all on streaming, your Formula Ones. There's so much sports now on streaming that, you need to have a good idea what's going on. So the format of streaming now, it caters to a different audience. So the way that ratings would count before, there's a couple of things that people don't really understand. And let's just make this clear as well, that the ratings that we're seeing dropping now, so far we've seen from Dynamite and Collision, from SmackDown. As of this recording right now, we do not have the NXT ratings as of yet. But we know that the change of ratings has gone on where Dynamite dropped to under 500,000. SmackDown barely broke 1 million viewers from 1.3 to 1.4. Dynamite was getting Raw sub 600,000 viewers. Collision dropping to under 300,000 views from 286,000, I think it is. So Dynamite did get a drop. From what it's looking like, but the bigger drop is going to be from the shows that have more of an audience. Raw right now currently is holding into the status at 2.3 million viewers worldwide. That is the bare minimum audience they can have for a worldwide audience. That's it. That's the barrier. So when we talk about 1.4, 1.5 million viewers was the basic audience that you would get for sure on Monday Night Raw when it was on USA Network. Well, Netflix, now 2.3 million viewers, that's about as low as it gets. And I don't know if it's going to stay like that and how it's going to work, but the thing is, the ratings right now, for some of the broadcast partners, if NXT, for instance, if they've been getting 700,000 at their best, 600,000 for the most part on the regular setup, if it drops into the 500,000, 550,000 range, if it goes to Dynamite numbers, it's not good for CW. So what we need to understand is what's going on with the ratings. If there was anything that was going on that would have affected what change there was overall. Now, in the ratings of this past weekend, when it comes to Friday Night SmackDown, Game 1 of the WNBA Finals hit the best. Almost 2 million viewers. And we're talking about non-news programming. That's it. Because everything else, SmackDown beat. Nielsen's doing this because of the live sports component. Broadcasters need this information for making programming decisions, purchasing sports rights, and judging the performance of advertising partnerships. But there are people out there that say this methodology right now before was outdated and didn't take into account viewers on streaming platforms. And for the sports industry, they know that streamers acquire more rights and more traditional broadcasters are launching direct-to-consumer services. So there's more people online watching content. And they need to be able to go ahead and get the information from that. So when you think about it, you're looking at the fact that, okay, you have the UFC Network that's running the content and also running on Peacock, but there are not a lot of people that are watching on Peacock as much as you are USA Network. There's only a certain amount that are watching on USA Network, and you're getting to see a bigger audience as a result, more from streaming than as anything else. But part of it is that the ratings that are given out for Raw, for SmackDown, and for Dynamite and Collision, we already learned now that HBO Max, the numbers for those streaming services are not included into the number that goes in for AEW programming now. So they're going to be shown lower than it was before in the new system. But if they're able to go ahead and incorporate the streaming numbers, their numbers will probably get back to where they were. And the same thing for SmackDown, as a matter of fact, if they're able to show the Peacock numbers. So they also are determining the public viewing data for businesses like bars and restaurants. So like if there's places that are showing programming where they are, those particular devices are going to get counted too into the methodology. So when you have sporting events at a bar, pick one, they of course are going to have those sporting events on, and the audience they're going to have for those is going to be bigger. There's not a lot of wrestling shows that are in sports bars or other places where people are going to watch locally. So, that's part of the deal here with this new data. So the data they're going to try to get here is a single source of truth, allowing for direct comparisons between broadcasters and programming, aiding transparency. They want to show what the streaming audience is for all this programming, along with the cable and network programming. What they're watching on a cable box or watching on rabbit ears. That's what they're trying to get to now. But what needs to happen now is all this wrestling programming, they have to go ahead and change how they program their shows if they want their ratings to go up. Because now they have to go and figure out what is it that they're going to do to make themselves much more interesting out there. And that's the thing they got to figure out now. In radio, we had the same thing go on several years ago. So Nielsen is the ratings company that does radio ratings. And we used to have diaries. So you would have a book that somebody would go ahead and get, and a sample of so many people in a particular city or a market. They would document, okay, here's what I listened to at this hour, at this hour, at this hour throughout the day. And that would be the sampling of what's out there. But then it changed because now we have the personal people meter. We now have a measurement tool, like a little beeper that people carry along with them. And it's actually able to go ahead and hear the sound waves of what they're listening to. So if they listen to the radio, they have the radio on, then that device is going to collect what stations are being picked up. So the personal people meter ratings, which goes back a good 15 years, that changed everything for all these stations. Because then stations that were running news and talk formats, they went down in numbers because people were not listening to them so much. And then music formats or other formats that were out there got better ratings. So it changed because it was identifying what was a different audience out there when you had more data to work from. That's what's going on now. I hope that all makes sense. And because of the change they have now, then we're seeing the difference. So WNBA getting more viewers because you have a lot of people streaming on it as well. Same thing goes. When you're looking at the ratings for network TV, like say on Thursdays, well, you're not going to get too much of what the audience is going to be of television network TV right now because there's not a lot of sports right now anyway. But once it comes up, you're going to find out. But like even now, we don't have a lot of new shows that have come back in yet. But right now, the particular viewership for all these shows, it's, no more than 4 million viewers right now across the board. But if you look at on cable, you have, for instance, Major League Baseball's wild card game with the Red Sox and Yankees, which was on Thursday night last week, almost 8 million viewers. And then anything else that would be your regular scripted programming that you'd see across the board, and you used to get bigger viewerships, Real Housewives of Orange County, of Miami, the English Teacher on FX, they're not getting the kind of ratings they used to. And everything else on cable is all news programming. That's getting the ratings for the most part. But you're going to see that the ratings across the board, they're all changing now because of what's happening here. That the ratings are changing because more sports is going to get more of an audience, period. WrestleNomics and Brandon Thurston put a whole thing about this earlier in the week. And when you look at the ratings now, all the programming has gone down. Because you can see the difference in news programming going up. it got a tick up. For sports, live sports programming, it went up. You can see there's some changes to that. But for instance, the first episode of All Elite Wrestling on a new format and this new ratings methodology dropped 13% on Wednesday nights and dropped 5% on Saturday nights. And now if you want to add it, SmackDown also dropped a good, 10% or so on Friday nights. It's all the changes that have been made. Now, both networks have been reacting to the changes that are going on right now with these wrestling ratings. So this new method of ratings calculations have shown a sharp drop in viewership for both the WWE and AEW over the past week, according to a new report from Fightful Select. And wrestling companies are going to be the ones that are going to be losing the most from it, which is already being aware. Tony Khan, AEW president, is aware of those changes and how they work thanks to his passion for stats, so he will be adept at what they mean and how to combat them, he says. And AEW is being simulcast on HBO Max. Viewing figures are still kept under wraps. When asked from a source from Warner Brothers Discovery, they believe it's too early to suggest anything as the sample size is too small, and that both AEW and WWE were both affected by Major League Baseball games that happened this weekend. Yeah, the playoffs are all starting up. Baseball is one of the few sports right now that's actually benefited from this method. College football, NFL, but Warner Brothers Discovery, they still believe that they need to see a stronger pattern emerge before any real changes need to be made. But now, one benefit for AEW is they're seeing that the fast national data, the overnight numbers, they're extinct now. The initial numbers released now are giving an indication of how a show performed. But the reason for this was because it adds an extra a day of delay to get the Nielsen numbers. So the WWE method of providing AEW's fast national data to the members of the media, if the number was low, can no longer be done because there's no longer that representation. And for WWE's side, a contact at USA Network told Fightful that changes being discussed, it could mean that wrestling isn't as hot as what many people have originally believed. They're against the idea that the panel data method overestimated the viewing patterns of wrestling fans, and the data they have analyzed in recent years shows no real need to be concerned right now. USA's contact also clarified that wrestling has given them a return on investment for very low costs over the past few decades, which is why they still do business with them. And it doesn't look like to be changing anytime soon. Fightful tried to talk to the folks at CW, but they're happy with how NXT is performing. It's their highest rated program. Fightful also reported that for the talent that's out there for WWE, that they've experienced more adjustments to their schedules than usual, but it has largely unaffected them. Now, there have been changes they're talking about right now with what will happen with SmackDown because of the effect of the ratings. They have to go and do something to kind of bolster the ratings back up and get them back to where they were. So, bodyslam.net says that SmackDown is going to be onboarding an undisclosed amount of new writers in anticipation for more enticing storylines come 2026. Road Dogg Jesse James will reportedly remain the co-captain to SmackDown's creative vessel alongside co-head writer John Swakata. And the additions are supposed to be making the show more enjoyable in the near future. And there have been a lot of people that have been going after SmackDown because of audience criticism. WWE and TKO are aware of the need to boost their show's quality heading up to 2026, despite record profits this year. So listen, with all this, it should tell people that you need to be aware that all the wrestling shows need to do something more to bring back compelling content. And the live component that all these shows have need to be utilized much stronger. So you just can't put matches out there and expect people to watch. You have to have something that's anticipation, that is catching people off guard. It can't just be pops anymore. You have to have cliffhangers. You have to have storylines that keep people hooked and you have them following along, and people have a way to go ahead and follow on those storylines if they kind of miss something. You have to start paying attention more to the TV audience. You got to give them something more than just a simple storyline and a match. They want more. And so for the fans out there that would watch wrestling, it's too simplified. It's time to start creating more complexity to all these dimensions of characters and to the storylines they're in. because you got to get these people invested interest. And that's what has to happen. You got to make it appointment television again. Somehow make it must see. It's not really possible to do so much these days, but you could probably do things right now to get some of the audience back, because there's still a wrestling fan base out there if you put the right product out there. And that goes for both of those brands. And it will go for TNA once they get themselves a TV deal onto an actual platform that's not Access and something a little bit more significant. Now, there is one notable story I want to bring up when it comes to creative and what's going on right now with the setup of what they're doing in WWE right now with the stars that they have. Santos Escobar, his contract expired. Now, there have been some conflicting reports saying that he re-signed, but no, what we're hearing right now is that Santos Escobar is not returning to the WWE, okay? According to FIFO Select, Legado del Fantasma member Santos Escobar could be on his way out. His contract is coming up soon, and he was discussing with WWE a new deal, but not been confirmed that the two sides had any kind of discussion. But apparently, he was not going to be signing a new deal because he was more involved, more concerned with creative dissatisfaction than it was about money, because of what his utilization has been as part of Legado del Fantasma and being kind of as almost like a manager character for Los Garza in AAA and what they've been doing on TV. There hasn't been much there. Like, the bulk of that group of Legado is kind of like, already kind of split all up. All I'm going to say is this. I enjoyed King Cuerno in Lucha Underground. I thought he was great. And that's one of the things I'll remember of how good a character he was. You took the mask off of him and, you had to go and start over again. Like, you had to go and do something really different. Yeah, King Cuerno, you're not going to use that character in American wrestling for the most part. You're not going to see it because that's a Lucha Libre character through and through. And so he absolutely works in Mexican wrestling. But to go and bring him in here, and they were trying to do, something of a conflicting character with Tony D'Angelo, which, by the way, do you ever see him at all? Is he injured? I forget now. I don't remember what's going on with him, but the whole storyline with him and the whole, the family, I don't know. I haven't seen much of them at all. Same thing with there are all these different factions they had and characters they had around, and you don't see anymore. You don't see changing diversity, nothing like that. Just a lot of changes. So Santos Escobar going away, I don't know if you bring him back into another character without a mask. I would like to think that Santos Escobar will go back under a mask again and go work wherever and just go back into it. If he can go back to King Cuerno, bring that back, I'd love it. I think it would be great. And person already said out there, I hope he gets to go to an MLW ring at some point and brings that character back just to go join Cesar Duran and all that group over there, because that would be really fun. That's my point about it. Some comments that came out this week for the program. I want to take a couple of them real quick because we're going to talk about the NXT TNA showdown that happened this week. And then we'll get into the Crown Jewel stuff and all the matches that are kind of leading up to Perth, Australia, coming up on Saturday morning. I will not be awake for that. That is way too early for me. I'll catch you somewhere after the fact. I know that. So I got a comment from my program from C.J. Jones. And he writes, "It's obvious you don't know or understand talent development. What has happened, though, is TNA has volunteered itself to be a minor league promotion, which is okay, but it's not a top-tier major in no shape or form now. But I'm very excited about this recent move. It only makes wrestling better. A drawback is the actual style of wrestling will become common." I mean, I don't know where the whole statement of saying that obvious that I don't know about talent development. That's not for me to go ahead and know. My point is, and there's another comment that came up on the TikTok feed saying that Trick Williams and Javon Evans, when I said, is anybody going to make that main roster? Because there's a ceiling right now in the NXT dynamic that they have where NXT's there supposedly as a developmental system, but it hasn't been that way. It's been its own standalone because it keeps going back to that because Triple H and whoever is running down there doesn't want to make a developmental system. It's just not. And whoever they have brought up from developmental in NXT up to the main roster, they struggled a lot because they haven't had much to work with. And they might have had characters they had down in NXT. They're not being brought up to the main roster with them. They're just kind of getting stripped down. So they're saying that Trick Williams, Javon Evans, those are two guys that'll probably make their way up. Well, I mean, they're already kind of being featured up there right now. Javon Evans already gets matches wherever. They just throw him on TV just to get him out there because he is quite the athlete. We know that. But how much of a storyline do we have about him? I mean, or a character about him? So there's that part. Then he talks about the fact that he says that TNA's volunteered itself to be minor league promotion. No. I don't understand what that even means. TNA is not a minor league promotion. They're not a developmental system. Because I don't think that going to TNA is, I mean, you're taking a step down because of the pay and the resources that they have. But I don't think it's going to be anything more than that. Now, Carlos Silva, I guess, because of the change in management over there for Anthem, it's a different story as well. I mean, Scott D'Amore, I don't think ever looked at TNA as being minor league. I never thought about it like that either. I mean, if you're going to be on television on any of these products, whether it's NWA or MLW, those are major leagues. They're not minor leagues. GCW, I wouldn't even count as a minor league system. Like if there are regional promotions, those are minor leagues. But the ones I just mentioned right there, WWE, AEW, MLW, TNA, and NWA are all national promotions. They all have national prominence. So I don't see them as minor league. I completely disagree with that. Carlos Silva, leading up to Bound for Glory, has been out there talking for a little bit right now. Carlos Silva, speaking with Off the Ropes with Jonathan the Coachman, he says that if young TNA talent want to go to WWE, we'll help them get there. TNA is an interesting platform because we can bring and provide a new platform for legends that have already been in the game for 10 to 15 years plus, but then we can also help to bring in on the young talent. And listen to what they're saying here. Okay, so for CJ Jones here to call this, a minor league promotion or talent development, the thing is that Carlos Silva is saying they'll do talent development for these stars that are not getting over in NXT or WWE, okay? Because here's what he says here. Look, is that talent at times going to leave? Is that talent going to want to go to WWE if they're younger talent? They are, and I said it in our, and Nick Nemeth knows this, that I will be the person that will help them as well. If that's the path, that is great. I also know they're going to continue to support TNA and maybe come back to TNA someday to continue creating this engine, and that's how we're going to continue to operate. So it's a point of saying that he will go ahead and work with young talent so they can go to WWE if that's what they want to do. He'll help them get there. But it's not developmental. It's not minor league because they're taking talent that's been around. They are in a system where they are what's an old school promotion does. Veteran talent with up-and-comers. It's what you do to bring forward to the forefront stars that are going to be brought up. Because as far as I'm concerned, just because WWE will take in TNA talent like they've done over the years and not put them on the main roster, that's just because WWE has just done like that anyway. Look at how many WCW stars would not make it to that main roster unless you were of a certain caliber. If you were marketable right away, then it would put you up there. So there's only a few examples that would get to that point. But for the most part, they always put it, everyone else underneath WWE is inferior. So maybe you think that anything that is not WWE talent is inferior because they're not there. Okay, fine. There's a lot of people that think that way. But I don't. And I never thought of TNA as that way. He says that this recent move only makes wrestling better, but the actual style of wrestling will be much, much more common. So we want to see WWE style being interjected into what TNA and AAA are doing? No. But they're doing that anyway. Oh, you think that was really good that during the Showdown event, the Survivor Series type event, that the men came away with a win and the women didn't? And you think because the Hardys are TNA stars, technically that they got to be the NXT tag team champions over Darkseid. Okay. And now the tag team titles, NXT and TNA, will be defended in the ladder match against the Dudleys at Bound for Glory. So they made that match set up like that. But otherwise, you still got Kehlani Jordan and Trick Williams that are their respective champions on the TNA brand. And I'm just saying to myself, is that really what TNA wanted to do? I don't think they wanted to make themselves a developmental system for WWE because NXT already has that system. There was never a need for NXT to be in place as the third brand. Just because people feel like, well, there's that WWE could go and give us an indie feel type promotion. Okay, but we didn't need a whole roster to go and do that. I mean, has it really brought in any money? I mean, it's trying to bring in money because, Nick Khan and the TKO folks have done a good job of taking whatever is under the umbrella, the auspices of WWE, and they've made it where like any programming is going to make a broadcaster salivate and say, oh, I need to have that programming. How much is it going to cost? I mean, for the NXT to be on CW, hey, they got a bump up from what USA was paying for it. And does it bring a decent audience? Yeah, but how often do they have to bring in main roster talent to go ahead and bolster things up? And leave some former main roster talent down there. They're basically doing what TNA was doing for the longest time. And that's been going on ever since the Tuesday Night Wars. They've always had to go ahead and interject some main event talent down there. It's never been regular. Like there was a change after the Tuesday Night Wars. We went to the Rainbow brand where Vince and Bruce were taking things over, and they really did try to go and make that more of a developmental system. But then when Vince went away, the Rainbow brand went away too. But Triple H, it's apparent, he doesn't want to do any kind of developmental system. What he wants is territories. And what he's doing right now is creating a territory system. A territory system that is not where you have different territories with different styles and different characters and a different promotion altogether. No, he's not doing that at all. He's trying to go ahead and control those promotions because you have WWE in those buildings. So then WWE is going to dictate the terms of what's going to happen. Oh, we're doing this partnership and we're going to be in a TNA event. Well, then our stars are going to be on top. Therefore, they have let JC Jane and Kehlani Jordan be their women's knockouts champion on TNA. Trick Williams has been, for many months now, the World Heavyweight Champion in TNA. Do they plan to go and do anything where those belts are going to be swapped over coming up? Probably not. Is there a chance that the X Division title will change hands from Leon Slater? Yes, I said it. I believe all three belts will be held by WWE or NXT contracted talent. So it's a territory system where it's like the NWA. But it's like, okay, so the NWA has their set champions, and they're going to instill those champions onto those brands, regardless of what TNA wants. So all the TNA stars that might be there, we look by the wayside. But they think, oh, well, Mike Santana is going to get a chance to be in there with Trick Williams, and that's going to help bolster him up. I mean, Mike Santana is not a rookie wrestler, okay? What he is, many years working in a tag team and just transitioning out into a solo star. So it's not like he's starting over. The guy's got years and years of experience out there. And anybody else holding on to him can make him a star. But it's a different story over here. The point is now is that you're dealing with what WWE wants, what's best for them. So it's a selfish point. What is going into Bound for Glory coming up. So that's what they care about over there. So for anyone to think that they're getting a lot out of all this, listen, the only reason that TNA's allowing themselves to go through this because AAA got bought out. So whatever happens to AAA is going to get changed. And regardless of what Conan has said, they're not going to change anything. Yes, they are. They will eventually do it because they own it and they are able to do that. They're entitled to do it because they bought the company right out, or at least have the bulk of the ownership, however that deal is going down. I also saw this earlier that today, the Hardy Boys 24 years ago today won the WCW Tag Team titles. Again, this is when I stopped watching anything WWE because, it was after WCW folded. And I was like, I completely lost interest in wrestling. I didn't want to watch. And they beat Harlem Heat, by the way. The Hardys would beat Harlem Heat to be the new tag team champs at that time. The most important thing right now for Carlos Silva, TNA president, is the TV deal. And he was asked about this on Bustin' Open Radio on the Off the Rope show with Jonathan Coachman and Nick Nemeth. So now here is what he said when it comes to the TV deal for TNA, which is the only reason that TNA is allowing themselves to be subjected to the kind of gross booking over the talent they have, being looked over. All their TNA talent is kind of being looked over in the process. I mean, the fact that you have Kalani Jordan running the TNA team for the Showdown event that they had. I mean, it's just that, TNA might be there, but it's not the TNA that we started with at the start of the year at Genesis. It's not like that kind of organization anymore. Like the Bound for Glory event we saw last year compared to this year is completely different altogether. So here's Carlos Silva talking about what's going on with the TV deal, which is the most important thing, because all that matters to Carlos Silva is, if we're going through all this, let's make sure we get the TV deal, because that was all we're here for.
So where are we at right now on a potential streaming deal or a potential television deal?
So, yeah, one and the same in today's world, for sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. It's the same place we were last week. I sort of made some statements on a couple of, platforms that we are literally every single day. In fact, I had a call on Monday, and we're working with lawyers to get the deal together. So I feel good about it. It's moving forward, and we're gonna get a deal done, and we're gonna be on a new platform in 2026. And it's like everything. Can't really talk about it yet till the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
So they're probably not going to have an announcement by Bound for Glory, but they'll have to wait. But there's no rush for them necessarily. It's just that while they're working with WWE right now, the partnership, they need to make sure that partnership is still beneficial for the WWE, because that's what they care about. I mean, for TNA, the fact that WWE is going to help them out to broker a deal. When he's talking about the lawyers, he's talking about CAA, which is Nick Khan's former outfit, of which he ran the sports portion of the agency, for many years before joining WWE eventually to be the president and CEO. So now, in this whole setup, Carlos Silva is going to go along with whatever WWE wants to do with TNA. It's like basically it's their play toy. WWE can do whatever they want at Bound for Glory if they want. They're going to have the run of the mill. And Carlos Silva will continue to go ahead and play along because they need to make more money off of a new television deal, because they don't want to go stick on their own platform at Access, because their own properties at Anthem Entertainment are not enough. They need to go and outgrow. They're already outgrowing themselves now by finally getting back to the level of attendance figures that they had before, where they can go on the road and do TV tapings and do pay-per-views and get a crowd, because they've been able to do that now. And of course, with WWE, that's done. But ultimately, the crowds and what they're doing, that's not going to be enough. They need the weekly television revenue. So they're hoping that this deal is going to be brokered right now with the folks that WWE is commissioned through CAA to get the broadcast deal done, streaming, television, whatever it's going to be, so that TNA can now finally get back to weekly television revenue. But at the end of the day, unlike the commenter that said before that I referenced to, this is not a minor league promotion. They're a national promotion. They're a global promotion, to be a matter of fact, because they have global deals all around. They have broadcast deals all around the country, all around the world. They have a big Canada deal at Sportsnet. They have deals to broadcast their content worldwide with various countries. They've had that. But this deal in America, to get this done, that's what they want to be able to get it done with, for the most part. However that can be. And so NXT, for TNA, I'm just not very excited for Bound for Glory coming up. And you could tell that the WWE has done their own thing when it comes to this show, because that's how they're going to do it. For Bound for Glory coming up next week, we'll do a post show here for it, right? But the show they have, it's not the major big card they had before. You got a number of matches that will probably not be going on during the main show. They'll probably be put in the post show, or the pre-show, excuse me. But so far, Leon Slater, Javon Evans for the X Division title. I can see Javon Evans, with what they've been doing with him right now, booking him on TV. He's been so close to winning that Javon Evans could take this title here, and they'll do it. They can pull the trigger for Javon Evans. I can see that happening. The Inspiration, which is a former talent, of course, WWE doesn't mind having the Inspiration being put in there over Elegance, which is TNA talent primarily, because they never were on any WWE product, because we're not talking about Dana Brooke, who's not out there. This is the other groups in the Elegance brand. They have added Gia Miller and Tessa Blanchard, which is Gia Miller, the backstage reporter now, and her feud with Tessa Blanchard culminating at Bound for Glory. So they're going to do that coming up. That shouldn't be a long match. And who knows, Tessa Blanchard will probably take a loss there too. And I'm sure that with WWE, they don't really care about this match. They're just going to say, well, with everything that happened with Tessa Blanchard in the past, she's never really paid restitution for it publicly. Social media is still going after her for her comments, and she's never going to be and nobody's going to ever forgive her for that. So that's it. The Intergender Hardcore Award, that's all TNA talent, but that's their match. If there's going to be anything that's truly all TNA talent overall, Kalani Jordan, Indy Hartwell now Knockouts World Title. Indy Hartwell, relatively new to the TNA brand, and Kalani Jordan, from NXT, holding this title belt. Hardys and T3D, who have been in both promotions and all over the place. So for the Hardys here now, the NXT and the TNA World Tag Team titles all on the line. One final table. That'll be a big match they'll have for the night. Probably be the match before the main event. Who knows? Maybe, my question is, do you go with Trick Williams, Mike Santana, and at the world title match at the end of the night? Can that be the main event? I don't think it can. I think one final tempo becomes that main event match. Mark my words. I expect one final table to probably close out the night. I expect Trick Williams, Mike Santana. That will not be the end of the night. Unless, if we're getting that match at the end of the night, then Mike Santana, they're going to do something big. But I think Trick Williams will retain, and someone else will come in to face Trick Williams, and that'll be the next opponent. But I don't expect anything where Mike Santana becomes TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And it's not against him. I just don't think that WWE's booking is going to allow it. That's not in the plans. There's matches in here that are put in here because TNA, this is their talent, okay? Frankie Kazarian, Steve Macklin, international title. That's just a full TNA match. Probably won't be looked at in high regard, especially from the supposed WWE fans that'll be watching the Bound for Glory show, doing the streaming now like they did for Victory Road. Because I'm going to have this new thing where all these Twitch streamers are kind of getting incentivized to watch TNA and do the same kind of stuff they do for WWE, right? That we're going to see a lot of that coming up. So for Bound for Glory, TNA, long timers like myself, watching since 2005, or watching since Fox Sports Net, then you're going to see what's going to happen with that. It's all going to get changed. Watch. So now I should finally go ahead and talk about Crown Jewel coming up this weekend and get to that part. I'm also going to talk about The Smashing Machine and Dwayne Johnson because I did watch that movie over the weekend. I'll tell you about that in a moment before we wrap things up. But we have champion versus champion, Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins, singles match for the Crown Jewel Championship. Again, it's a ring, right? That's all that matters. Stephanie Vaquer, Tiffany Stratton, champion versus champion, John Cena, AJ Styles, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky versus Kabuki Warriors, which we know there's a lot being said about that match because of the fact that Io Sky, Kabuki Warriors have been the most compelling storyline there is. Yeah, and that's it. And then Roman Reigns, Bronson Reed, Australian Street Fight. And I guess what comes up, Street Fighter movies coming up, and Roman Reigns will be off and going again. And also he's been playing a bit hurt as well. But what they've been doing to lead up to Crown Jewel Perth coming up, it's like, I've not been impressed by it. It's just kind of been there. By the way, a number of things that people keep pointing out on social media, they're always fascinating. Judgment Day are now WWE Tag Team Champions for 100 days. They've only defended them once in 100 days. Shout out Wrestle Features for saying that. Comments about Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman. Somebody says here, this talk between Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins, along with those incredible video packages, just sold me on Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins 4. They kept the story beautifully simple. Seth Rollins cannot be the best until he beats Cody Rhodes. Everything he has accomplished in WWE means nothing unless he gets that win. And if he doesn't, he risks losing the respect of the locker room, the vision group he cultivated, and maybe even Paul Heyman himself. That's how you build a match. No one cares about a meaningless ring. People care about stakes. And these are high stakes. A loss for Rollins could literally be the difference between a legendary career or a mediocre one. So more than anything in the world, he needs this win. It's all or nothing at Crown Jewel. Fantastic stuff from WWE tonight. This episode really excelled in the storytelling department. All right. No. I disagree completely with all that. Okay. But we're still trying to say that it's the matter of, what does he really lose? The Crown Jewel Championship. And the fact that he needs to go ahead and worry about Cody Rhodes. No, it doesn't matter. He's a champion himself right now. He has the vision. I thought Cody Rhodes was in his rearview mirror. They had the cage match. Cody Rhodes with the torn pec. We already had all that. We already had their feud. You're doing this feud because of what? Because this Crown Jewel show has to have all this talent on board. So all the champions have to go and show up and face each other. And you're going to make it where the vision, which is what? Not even 6 months old. Not even that, right? And by the way, so Seth Rollins is the one that accomplished something because he had the cash in. He's already done what he wants. He's already on top. So Paul Heyman, because Seth Rollins might lose to Cody Rhodes, even though he's not going to lose his World Heavyweight title. You're telling me this is going to upset Paul Heyman and say, oh, I'm going to, second guess why I decided to go and leave Roman Reigns. I mean, no, that does not make sense. Seth Rollins really loses nothing. He loses an ounce of pride. That's it. You want to just call it that? Fine. But don't tell me this is really excelling in the storytelling department. Fantastic stuff. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Ooh. Some people, man, I'm just surprised about that, but okay. Also this week, Max Dupree ditching the Dupree gimmick, becoming LA Knight. And somebody saying, what a fantastic decision. I mean, look, fine. If LA Knight wants to go back to his original character, fine. He wants to go back to an Eli Drake type character, which is what he's creating now in WWE for the last 3 years. Good for him. Yeah, I guess it's moved on because as long as Triple H is there, he'll use him like he wants to use him. And that's it. Now, the other thing they're talking about is from Monday Night Raw, where Roman Reigns and the Usos are backstage. Another story that's being brought up here where, okay, they're not even a Crown Jewel. Roman Reigns is taking on Bronson Reed in an Australian Street Fight. Usos don't have a match on the pay-per-view. But now we have to bring Jay, Jimmy, and Roman together to restore some kind of bloodline drama that we had, the sibling rivalry from before. So they're rekindling it here. This is how they did it.
For no reason, sir. Star Sprint, man, what up, Boost? What's up? What you doing here? Matter of fact, why is you out there with me? I'm trying to run the players, trying to handle business. Hey, I'm trying to get this World Heavyweight Championship. Now you got us a tag match. You trying to protect Punk? Are you protecting Punk? Look, you better recognize what side you on tonight, Oos. You better know what side you on tonight, Oos. All right?
There's not much that Jay had to work with right there. Jey Uso was already World Heavyweight Champion for a short time. So for him to try to get that belt back, I get that part. And then we get to Roman and Jimmy talking to each other.
Okay? Okay? I'm on your side, bruh. I'm on your side. Man, you know this. You know I got him all the time. Man, but you know what, man? You said you see and hear everything, Oos. So do I. And I see what's going on, Oos. I see you over there pulling your strings, man. Messing with his mental. You got him thinking a certain way that he don't need to go down on. So I need you to accept this, Oos. I'm not like you. Jay is nothing like you.
Now, the thing is that Roman getting himself back more to his heel persona, more as a tribal chief, head of the table, they should have done that. I mean, right now, he lacks any kind of bite as the face. It doesn't work. So they're retconning things. They had to go ahead and do a little spin to try to get this kind of storyline back up and working again. So I give them credit on that. They got to do something because it's just so flat right now. The new bloodline flat. Okay. Now Solo Sikoa saying he's going to come back at some point, but that whole NFT thing done. MFT, whatever it's called. I'm sorry. You got me confused with NFT and MFT, non-fungible tokens, and MF Tribe, whatever. So the thing is, Solo Sikoa and that whole crew, that was, that fell flat with Tonga this, Tonga that, Toa this, Toa that. Done. So now we're going to go and focus back on Jay and Jimmy back together, working with each other against the Vision. And then putting Roman back into place, doing what he used to do with Jey Uso back in 2020. That main event Jey Uso was the next in line. He was supposed to be the next tribal chief. So putting that back in doesn't make any sense either because Roman Reigns, there's no power right now in that bloodline either. So why are we doing that again? So, I mean, the thing is that Roman's saying, okay, he wants to get Jey Uso to get back and focus once again on the World Heavyweight title so we can get back to things. And then probably there's some point where Jey Uso gets that belt back and then Roman Reigns will find his way back to getting that belt himself. Whatever it is. But for Roman Reigns, the Ulafala, the deal with having a championship once again, and doing this with no wise man and Paul Heyman, who cares about that? The thing is, so they're going to put the bloodline up against the Vision. I got that. Okay, that's fine. But Roman now going back to Jey Uso and manipulating him again, fine, let's go and do that. But I finally started hearing Roman Reigns the way I wanted to hear him again. Back in a form where, he's got stones.
I know you're not hearing me right now, but you should listen to this. When your brother won that World Heavyweight Championship, he became more like me and less like you. And if you really want to help your brother, sometimes you just need to get out of his way.
Fine with me. Works. So Roman seeing power coming back through Jay, that's a fine storyline with me. I got no problem with that. But who are we getting with this after all this is said and done? That's the whole point. And the thing is with Jay, okay, we're putting this as a part of the focus of the program, but look, Jay's not involved in any title matches coming up right now. And as far as I know, I guess Survivor Series is what's going to be coming up, and we'll have probably Bloodline and Visions going up against each other as the main men's 4-on-4 or 5-on-5 match. And that's fine. So that's what they got set up as well. Also, the women's U.S. title, since it was introduced earlier this year, it has not been defended on a single premium live event. Now, we know that the Intercontinental title has been defended because you had Bayley and Becky Lynch, and they're making a big deal about Lyra Valkyria, and now they're talking about Lyra Valkyria is going to be made a big main event star. Oh, boy. Good luck with that, man. They're going to try to make her a main event star next year. Oh, boy. Good luck with that. Another comment that was out here The cost of sitting front row at WrestleMania. At WrestleMania 30, the price of a front row ticket was $2,000. WrestleMania 39, $16,000. And only 3 years later, $42,219. And the person writes here, literally a down payment for a house. Amazing. So Saturday night, I'll probably going to do a post show going up when it comes to Crown Jewel Perth. We'll talk about it for a few minutes. I'll bring it up after the fact. But I'll wait till later on the night, when I get home. But I'm not going to be necessarily talking about it, immediately after. No, I don't know how I'm going to do that. It's like, whatever. So keep in mind everything going on right now in the current role of Raw. Roman Reigns coming out, accepting a challenge for Big Roz and Reed for Saturday. CM Punk coming back, and LA Knight and Jey Uso are all now sticking a claim for the World Heavyweight title. You have the continuation of Asuka and Kairi Sane with Io Sky and Rhea Ripley. Bayley and Lyra Valkyria continuing on their whole deal, with Bayley turning into one side to the other. And Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman dealing with the whole deal with Crown Jewel coming up. That's it. And then when it came to NXT last night, Matt Cardona is going to challenge Josh Briggs to a match. Why that's going to matter. Lexis King confronting Elihu Wagner Jr. So obviously the setup of AAA coming up with the match between those two most likely. Blake Monroe, after getting done with Jordan Grace, now is dealing with Zulk, Ruka, and Zarya. And an NXT Women's Championship number 1 contenders match. Contenders Battle Royal includes the TNA Knockouts division. They're going to have set up coming up for next week on NXT. That's the setup. But so far, Crown Jewel, Bound for Glory is coming up. Crown Jewel this weekend. If I got to get, any predictions at all, like it really matters. I expect Seth Rollins to beat Cody Rhodes. It doesn't matter. Stephanie Vaquer will beat Tiffany Stratton because it doesn't matter. John Cena will beat AJ Styles. I expect Kabuki Warriors to beat Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. And I expect Roman Reigns and Bronson Reed. By the way, we're going to get another Roman Reigns Bronson Reed fight. Look, who asked for this right here? Wow. I am not impressed by that at all. But hey, this is their choice. They decided going to do it. I was like, okay. Another Roman Reigns Bronson Reed match. I didn't know anybody was asking for that or clamoring for it, but they think Bronson Reed's like a big star. Isn't he almost 40 years old? But either which way, this is what they planned for it. So I will do a post show for Crown Jewel coming up this weekend. By the way, I've been enjoying MLW. Fightland was great. Slaughterhouse was great. Loved it. That's where the wrestling's been really at for me. Anyway, come back for another Wrestling's World podcast this weekend because wrestling needs us.